So you guys see Paddy the Baddy win at UFC.
Yeah.
And he had a powerful message at the end that we were going to talk about.
I want to dedicate this fight to little baby Lee.
I love his accent. Sounds like Hannah.
I woke up on Friday morning. That's for you.
Damn. Right before the weigh-in. Holy
That's
shit.
rough, dude. And he still won that fight. That's crazy, man.
Please speak to someone.
It's cool.
Great accent.
Wow.
Great.
I don't know what he said, but his accent was
And at some point, I swear to God, he was gonna be like, try to catch me, Lucky Charms.
I thought
So that's not Conor McGregor?
Follow the rainbow. I thought he was gonna say that, but like he didn't.
That's good. Way to mask, boys. Way to mask.
No.
Wait a minute. The best part about that though is him like right after he gave that interview, he just started crying. Like he like fell to his knees, started crying. And like he was like sobbing. Yeah, I was watching the fight.
Because one of his best friends passed away.
Yeah, and like you just see him like he's walking back to the back room and he's just like sobbing the whole time. Like you just see it like it looks like all that emotion was like weighing really heavy on him.
So like
after that fight,
cultural context wise, right? So like us, you know, we're West Coast Ferry boys, right? We're like more like a little bit more in tune with emotions, especially in entertainment and people talk and whatever. It's more of an accepted place to do that. I would say 10 years ago, if I showed any signs of like weaknesses or whatever, people immediately call me gay. They would just immediately just be like, your bestest friends would just laugh at you.
Yeah.
And they're like, what's wrong with you, dude? Like, they'll actually make fun of you for opening up about any struggle. And sometimes it's serious struggle. Sometimes you're sad because your parents left or whatever. And then it's just a shitty environment because especially how me and Bart grew up, you're around like violent macho dudes who also are masking what they went through. And then the way they hid their pain was just beating up other dudes or whatever. And it's like they don't want to be reminded of their pain. So if you open up, then it makes them hurt. So everyone protected themselves by just like being aggressive against reminding themselves of how much their life sucks.
Yeah, lashing
but then
out.
now, right, like you feel like the world has changed because LA changed. And you feel like just because this bubble, this West Coast bubble, and maybe your friend circle changed, you feel like so did everybody else. But in reality, blue collar communities all over the world are still like this. And then I think also we do have this idea that white people don't struggle, right? So like a lot of minority communities think white guys got it good. But apparently what Hannah told me is that in her, so he's from that side of England.
Scouser?
Right? Yeah, they're you know, like Liverpool, whatever.
They don't get knocked out?
They don't get knocked out.
Yeah.
So like in Ireland,
The stigma?
in Wales, and like they're like some
Hard ass dudes.
Hard coal mining, old school Great Depression white dude mentality, right? Like no one talks about how they feel. They're out fist fighting all day. And it's a stereotype, but it's also like, I would say 1995 LA. So then in that community, they don't talk about how they feel. So then she has family friends that it's like this thing that's going on right now where like dudes just can't deal with their shit and then they off themselves.
Really?
And you're talking about tough ass guys, like you're talking about veterans that came back. You're talking about guys that like, you know, they were the talk of the town because they're great at fist fighting or whatever. And then they all just one day break down and then they get their families get a phone call like, oh yeah, this guy, you know, he offed himself. And then so she's like, yeah, it's like a thing that's happening. It's probably happening all over the world, but like it's a problem in Patty's area too.
Yeah, so that's why. And it's crazy that a guy like him, who is seen as a very masculine guy, he's a fighter, he just won one of the biggest fights in his career, for him to have that message off the jump and for him to deliver it with like, he delivered that message very well. Because you see so many fighters that have post-fight interviews and they're just trying to like talk about anything.
Coming out with a new NFT.
Yeah, like and they're just like fucking fumbling it the whole time.
I'm going to Disneyland.
And this guy fucking nailed it, and I think it means a lot to that community if a guy like Paddy the Baddy is speaking out about these issues, you know. So he's the man, dude. That's why everyone loves him. That's why Barstool's paying him a lot of money.
Yep.
Because if they think that that's like a sign of weakness, right? And if a
Guys still do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
yeah, but
100%.
if they think that it's a sign of weakness, and a man that they think is already weak comes out and says,
Like, if
"Hey,
I say
guys,
it?
you need to talk
Yeah.
about
Oh, you're a pussy. You're gonna
emotions."
say
Yeah,
pussy.
you get
shit.
knocked out all the time, you fucking idiot. But then Patty Batty says it.
Oh
Yeah.
shit.
It's different when someone that they respect says it. Then it's like, oh shit, maybe I should maybe it's all right then, because then the toughest motherfucker who beats up dudes, who I feel is like a tough macho dude, then is like, all right, fuck. Well, if he's okay with it, maybe it's okay to open up about it.
That would be tight if like on BetterHelp they had an extension. If you're a tough guy, you call this dude, and he's like, "The fuck is up, man? How you feeling?" And he's talking to you like you're a tough guy. I don't know, man. Not too great.
That's how they all talk.
Maintain that language so you don't feel like shit.
Yeah, that's right.
Or it's just Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
So you get that soft voice, but you also know he's a monster.
That guy's always ready to cry because he went through some shit. Like you can tell he's like ready to at all times.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey,
What's wrong?
Watching my grandpa,
What's been bothering you?
Watching my grandpa growing up, like being taught not to cry and shit. I'm like, man, there's nobody who needs to cry more than this man. You know what I mean? Like nobody who like went to war and all kinds of shit, and like he didn't want to talk about anything. Wanted to just sink into movies every night and fucking drank himself to sleep. And like, like I wish that guy would have opened up because like he didn't want to.
Jeez.
Like that's pussy shit.
I've never seen my father cry. Come to think of it,
Not once.
not once.
What about
Yeah,
when
me
your
neither.
sister's first baby? Not even then. Wow.
Yeah, I don't think I see my dad cry either.
Yeah.
Just gaslight the fuck out of the family.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe.
Hey, don't mask it, Joe.
He didn't cry when he saw you cutting his piano strings.
Anything but the fucking Yamaha.
I think maybe once I saw my dad cry. Maybe once, maybe. Yeah.
Damn, when was it? When was it?
I don't remember. I just remember seeing his eyes, you know, and being like, "Holy."
Just
fuck.
well it up.
Yeah.
Do you think, so like, our generation is probably the beginning of starting to talk about shit like this, and then like the younger ones are super...
But even in our generation, right? There's still a lot of like you're being a bitch and all that stuff. There's a ton of it.
Yeah, it probably that didn't even happen until maybe we were like in our 20s where we started hearing stuff like that. So even like we spent half of our lives, more than half, not talking.
Yeah, and not knowing how to process.
Yeah, and and then only like a minority of our lives we just started opening up a little bit.
Well, because first, you have to even recognize that you're going through some shit. I remember I'd be fucking angry, yelling at people, wanting to fight them, and thinking, I'm not that angry. You know, like, you have to understand that you're going through it first.
I also remember in high school, you know, like people would like fucking, obviously high school is just wild, right? It's like a bullying ground for stuff like that, and you're like sitting in class, people are making fun of you. And I remember one of my friends, same thing, he got made fun of, he's about to shed a tear, but the natural thing to like support him in that moment was like, hey dude, don't let them see your tears. They're gonna fucking kill you if they see that shit.
That's true, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's my way of being a friend.
Right.
And now I think about that and I'm like,
You should have cried with him, bro. You should have cried first.
maybe, maybe, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
how do you respond in those situations? How do you like shake that mold?
Isn't that in what was that, Adam Sandler, where he puts piss on his pants so the other kid doesn't get made fun of that he peed his pants?
Big Brother.
So he
I
like
think it's
puts
Big Brother.
water on his pants and he's like, oh, it's cool to pee your pants.
That's what
now."
you should have did. You should have poured water on yourself.
Probably should have.
Is there still a line though where some people are being a bitch?
Dude, for sure. Those lines are very blurred, I think.
Questions that need to be asked.
Because like even though like yeah, you know, someone's feeling suicidal, should like fucking address that. Some people be feeling suicidal over the most entitled shit sometimes.
Because their Starbucks order was wrong?
Yeah.
But almost nowadays too, it's like the phrase mental health and like using the term anxiety is like almost used to the point where it's like a catchphrase these days. It's like trendy.
I think it's kind of a necessary thing, right? So it's like it's one of those things where we were so far the other way.
that's true.
We have to kind of start all the way over here, overcorrecting, and then kind of find a nice balance.
Yeah,
Because
that's
the thing that people say too would be like to your point, you know, like anytime anyone that lives in like a first world country is like crying about some shit, they're like, oh look at that country, like you're so entitled.
Yeah.
But then I think the thing that people say is like, well, that's my experience.
Right.
So maybe them getting their Starbucks order all fucked up is like reason to jump off a building or whatever. But it's hard for me to understand.
But don't we know that that's not what it is by now? You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like my grandpa yelling about how my grandma made too much of something and so nobody can eat all of it, for example. It wasn't about that, right? But we all go, oh, Grandpa's being stupid again, but he's really masking some other bullshit.
He probably saw like 10 people die in Europe and he's like, damn.
Why am I alive?
Yeah.
Why me?
Yeah, that's
He watched his whole platoon get shot up. Every single person died except for him. Every
Oh, he was the last man standing?
Yeah.
The lone survivor.
Yeah, but that's the kind of shit where you're like, you know, like it's about the thing that we're all laughing at. Like a guy at McDonald's the other day blows somebody away because his fries are cold. Do we really think that that's why he did it? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I hate cold fries.
But what about the
justified.
people that like they go onto Instagram to vent for like 10 minutes, right? And then the whole 10 minutes they're venting about something that, at least on the surface, seems very like trivial. Like, how do we know what it really is about? Do we take their word for it, or like?
I don't know, man. It's to me, it's just about trying to treat people like people a little bit more and a little bit less like they're just being fucking Riris. You know what I mean?
I've heard that so long.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, because we love to just write somebody off and just go like, we're fucking addicted to it as a culture. We can't wait to just write somebody off and go, that's this person. They're like that. And it's like, ha ha, fuck you, bye. And we keep walking around.
There's also like self-preservation though, right? Like, cause you will see stuff like that, or like people will pull out that energy where they're having like the hardest day or whatever. Not just your friends, but just like random people. I literally ordered some fucking food that got delivered the other day. I go outside and the guy put my food down on the sidewalk, and he's in the middle of the street. This is at night, and he's taking a photo of the moon or whatever, right? And then I came out. He's like, oh wow, you came out so quick. I was just taking a photo of the moon. It was nice. And I was like, hey man, enjoy yourself. Then he comes by, he's like, no dude, I can't. You're literally talking to the person who has like the worst life in the world. And I'm like,
whoa.
I tripped out for a second, and I was like, all the more reason to enjoy yourself, man. And then he's handing me his food, and he's like, no, I just told you, I can't. And then he goes, anyways, and he hands me the food, right? And so there's
what the fuck?
I have no relationship with this guy, so there's also a part of me that like almost I don't know, subconsciously there's like a self-preservation mode that goes in where I'm like also like I don't need toxic energy in my life too. You know what I'm saying?
For sure, yeah.
So like I feel like there's, you know, if you get exposed to it a lot too, a part of you is kind of like, what I need to keep myself like also healthy and in my own way.
No, for sure, yeah.
I also think like that's just weird social skills because there's no rapport with you.
Yeah.
It's like if
really
a cashier
bad, yeah.
at Ralph's is like, how's your day going? And you go, I almost killed myself, you son of a bitch. You know, like it's like that's like
Right.
I mean, that's not normal social skill shit.
It's wild and it's fun to like go look at it and just laugh at that, because that's where my brain usually goes, right? But then it is really interesting to think about what's behind it. Like I
Sure, yeah.
Like they're at a breaking point. That's why they're not being, you know, like
something that I'm trying
polite or whatever.
to do more, because I definitely did the first thing more in the past.
What do you mean? Just write people off?
Well, I'll just laugh at something and because it's funny and then move on.
I do think that when someone is close, though, like when there is the rapport, when we have years together, to me, if they're acting out of character, then it's like, oh, something's really up, but they can't say it, or maybe they don't recognize it, and then I'm just like, I'll dig. But if I don't see that, then it's hard to dig. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like if people are masking and they're really good at it,
Yeah,
then it's hard to even know to reach out.
of course.
So then if Patty is telling people to just like open up a little bit, and if someone does open up and they never did before, that's when I'm like, oh
Yeah.
shit, what's going
That's
on?
huge, yeah.
But if they're complaining every fucking day,
Yeah.
then it's like, shut the fuck up, you're overextending your fucking
Right.
venting.
Can you mask some more?
Yeah, ask a little bit more.
Or just try to deal with it first.
Yeah.
And
think
it's
there's a
always
difference.
easier to talk about like an issue before it explodes as an issue, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if something is like bothering you, even though it's like kind of trivial, it's actually easier to talk to somebody about a trivial problem to get over versus like you're like, oh, this is trivial, I don't want to talk about it. And then like fucking 3 months later, it's not trivial anymore. It's fucking you up. You know what I mean? And then it's harder to dig out of that hole. It's harder for your friends to understand where you're coming from because they're like, I had no idea. How do you know what I mean? So it's like there is that line where it's like, am I being a bitch? But at the same time, if you can kind of like nip something in the bud and you know you can get through it, or you have the support system, get through it faster. so that you can move on. You know what I mean? Otherwise, things can build up with lack of communication or lack of just that channel.
There's also a weirdness with when you think of the idea of like somebody asking for help. In your mind, the optimal tone is very eloquent. But most people, everyone's different, so they all have a different way of expressing like, yo, help me out.
Especially when it's wrong.
Some people honestly sound fucking annoying. Some people sound really like
some people attack you.
Exactly, yeah. They have like different ways of doing it. It's never the way that like when Patty's saying it, like our instinct is to imagine a friend that we already trust saying like, yo, like just bringing it out, but most of the time it ain't gonna come out like that.
It's not well packaged.
That's kind of like
a lot of the time it's like, you know why you're fucked up? It's like, what the fuck? And then you dig deeper and you're like, oh, it had nothing to do with me, but they attacked me to mask their own pain.
Like some people probably already know somebody like that, and they're like, in their mind, they're like, oh, if anybody ever came to me, I would help them. But yo, you probably already know somebody that's been expressing it, but you don't recognize it, because it's not in the way you.
It is the hardest thing to actually get to the words like, hey, I need help. Like,
exactly, yeah.
That's so fucking difficult, you know, to even admit it, let alone say it and manifest it, because you also end up like getting insecure about the idea of like, man, if I say this, then I really do have a problem.
Yeah, I'm vulnerable now.
You know what I'm saying? So like, it's a whole fucking slippery slope of that stuff, but that's why getting at it early, recognizing that you can be vulnerable. That's why, honestly, anytime somebody's like, hey, how you doing? Like, I'll just say it. I might not be sad about it, but if shit's hitting the fan and things aren't good, I'll be like, oh, shit's like kind of bad right now. But it's not like, yo, woe is me. It's more like, I need to be honest before this turns into something else. Versus the small talk like, oh, shit's cool.
Shit's tight.
When it's not, you know what I mean?
Right.
It takes so much self-awareness though, because I remember being in that state of mind and getting so used to deflecting so that became my autopilot to the point where you don't even recognize that you need help, because that becomes a part of your personality where you're really good at bearing everything that's painful.
Yeah.
And then so like if you're like these guys who's in the macho world, then everything's a fucking joke, or everything is just, that doesn't happen to me. I don't get depressed, none of that stuff. Those are weak people, not me. So then even if you do need the help, I think it's hard to even talk about it and say, hey, I have a problem, because if the problem doesn't exist in your head, then why would you reach out for help? So I think it's like a group effort of like people being like, man, is that guy all right? Maybe we need to talk to him.
Well, there's hella branding out there too. It's like, hey, you're a toxic man. And so it's like, you know, there's like all this shit out there. It's like, man, I'm just trying to be like myself. And then I'm branded as this person now. And so now if I'm supposed to say something, I'm being a toxic man or something. Like there's this confusion out there about terms and like.
It's like, oh shit, I'm a Nazi apologist. What the fuck did I do?
There's also adding to that is like, I remember being told like, oh, you could tell me anything, whatever, and then I open up and I get punished for opening up and not communicating in the way that they want to hear, and it becomes about them that are hurt or whatever, and I'm just like, dude, well, fuck it then, I'm not gonna open up.
Yeah, it also doesn't help when, I mean, like even on like Fresh and Fit podcasts, they talk about like any man who's opening up like that, women do not want to fucking date you. It's like, it's like maybe some women don't, but like, dude, it's hard too when like
if you're on the first date and you're fucking crying.
Yeah. Red flag for sure.
Unless the first date was at Titanic too, then we can understand that.